Hey, what's going on, guys? I've gotten a few requests to go over the new Fortuna amps, especially as they relate to Eidolon hunting. And I think after watching this video, I'm going to revolutionize the way you do Eidolon hunts. Your life will quite literally never be the same again. The way we used to build our amps was by using any of the prisms. Which one you chose really didn't matter that much because we were mostly just using the Certus Scaffold for DPS. And I'm here to tell you that after all the Fortuna amp parts, we're doing the exact same thing. That's right, you heard me, it's the exact same thing. But wait, there's more. We did get one awesome upgrade, and that's the Certus Brace. This brace gives you 20% critical chance, up from the 12% that the Lauren Brace gave you. And while it also doesn't increase your status chance on amps is garbage, so we don't care about that. Basically, it's just a purely better brace than the Lauren Brace, so we're using it now. And that's really it, guys. That's all we're doing for the Eidolon amps. And because we're building for crit chance, we want to have Virtuous Shadow on it. And with our Virtuous Shadow proc, that brings our crit chance up to roughly 87%, where it used to be 76%. I am going to be going over all the new Fortuna parts, but if you're here for the Eidolon amps, you can stop watching the video now. Seriously, that's it. But as for the new prisms, there are 3, and I'll do my best to pronounce these guys, but I'll also put the name on the screen so you can look it up if you want to. The first one is the Cantic, and I think this is the best one, honestly, because it has the best ammo economy, and it'll still take care of enemies to a reasonably high level, especially if you're getting headshots, and I don't think it's too difficult to get headshots with this, but, you know, I'll leave that up to you guys. The second prism from Little Duck is called the Lega Prism, and it essentially just works like a flamethrower does, so like think the Ignis Wraith. The damage is lower, but you fire faster, and it's got a reasonable range. Unfortunately, this one doesn't have high crit chance, so the extra crit chance you get from the brace isn't really that great. But if you are using this for an Eidolon amp, it'll take care of things like Vombalists, and it'll also dump your Matter stack very quickly. If you're not using it for Eidolons, then maybe think about a different brace. The final prism is the Klamora Prism. And honestly, if you're just using this with a base energy pool, it's not going to be enough. You run out of ammo in about 2 seconds. On top of that, it has incredibly short range. So basically the enemy needs to be in front of your face for you to deal damage. Again, you can use this to dump your Matter stack extremely quickly if you're doing Eidolons, but past that, I don't really find a practical use for it. It does have a higher crit chance than the previous prism, but again, it runs out of ammo so quickly that you just can't really kill anything with it. So just to recap, I really like the Cantic Prism, although if you want to dump Matter stacks, probably go with the Lega Prism for Eidolons. Or you could always just stick with one of the Certus Prisms that you already like. As for the new scaffolds we got, again, there are 3 of these. I'll start with the Exard Scaffold. And I really hate this scaffold, mostly just because it dumps your entire energy pool the second you fire. Although if you do hit your shots and the enemies are grouped up, it does have a pretty good splash damage radius. But I find it difficult to use when the enemies are running around and it's easy to miss your shots, especially with the erratic fire pattern that this scaffold has. The second scaffold from Little Duck is called the Dissic Scaffold. And the way this scaffold works is you basically lob out one shot, and then when that shot lands, it fragments into smaller shots that scatter around it. The damage here is pretty good, and it'll take care of enemies up to a pretty high level. The main issue with it is it costs a lot of energy, so you're only going to get about 2 shots off unless you have a brace that's going to increase your energy pool. And because this has bad crit chance, I'd recommend doing that if you're going to build around this scaffold. The last scaffold from Little Duck is called the Propa Scaffold. And this is probably my favorite scaffold of the 3. Mostly because it does a lot of damage in an AoE and has pretty good crit chance. And as you can see when you fire it, there's an orb that goes out with an AoE around it. The AoE around it is basically its blast radius. Unfortunately, you can't fire it very far, so hitting distant targets is pretty unlikely. Also, it has no status chance, so proccing an arcane like Arcane Fury is going to be pretty inconsistent with this scaffold. But other than the fact that you can't fire it very far, I do enjoy using the scaffold the most out of the 3. As for the new braces that Little Duck offers, like I said at the top of the video, you're probably going to be focused on the Certus Brace just because that's being used for Eidolons. And 20% crit chance is pretty good for most of the amp parts. However, if you're using your amp for something else, you might want to consider either the Suo Brace or the Lega Brace. The Suo Brace will increase your energy pool while also increasing the time it takes for the amp to recharge. And this takes your recharge from 2 to 4 seconds, which is honestly a pretty big recharge delay. So if you're planning on only popping into your operator using a couple abilities and then popping back into your Warframe, then maybe this is the brace for you. While the Lega Brace on the other hand will decrease your amp's energy pool while also decreasing its recharge delay to 0.5 seconds. This means you can fire less but more often, so I'll leave whichever one you like the most up to you. To me, the energy pool braces are more of a personal preference than one being strictly better than the other. But considering how energy hungry some of the new Fortuna parts are, you might want to consider using an energy brace over the crit brace if you're not doing Eidolons. But that's going to do it for this video going over the Fortuna amp parts. I just wanted to briefly talk about each part and show what they look like in-game. But if you have any detailed questions about certain amp parts, then leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to get back to you. For me, I just build my amps for Eidolons and don't really worry about anything else, so that's really my area of expertise. But I'm more than willing to test certain things if you guys have specific questions. And I'm also working on getting a set of each of Little Duck's Arcanes, so I can do a review of those as well. But that's going to do it for me today, guys. I hope you're all having a good one, and I'll see you later.